Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take. As a matter of fact, this is the 100th episode of The Take for Market Rebellion, and we're pretty excited about that. I've got something to tell you at the very end here that I think you're going to really enjoy hearing about. But how about we talk about the markets? Because the markets yesterday absolutely on fire, an explosive move. As a matter of fact, in the last 30 minutes, rather than selling off like we'd had that theme for a while, we actually had a big explosive move to the upside. And what a day we had. When I look over and suddenly you see the Dow up 550 points, which is close to 2.5%. That's a pretty outrageous move to the upside. S&P a little bit less, up about 1.5%. NASDAQ is kind of moving around. It was dislocated all day long from the other two indices, but the NASDAQ did actually finish in the green, but only up about 72 points, less than 1% to the upside. And that's been something that's been playing out as well. So we've seen different themes, but a lot of what we have been seeing has been that the NASDAQ definitely outperforming oftentimes. Well, that rotation. And that rotation we talk about being healthy rotation, the healthy rotation of moving out of some of the exclusive growth stocks, and in some cases, very limited number of stocks, and then trying to move over towards some of those value stocks. Well, I don't know whether or not in this day and age and what we're looking at in the markets right now that we can call many of these stocks necessarily value stocks, but I just see this as more of a healthy rotation. And actually, the financials, that has been where the rotation has moved over the last couple of sessions. And wow, what an explosive move to the upside again that we had out of the financials. So that really was the leader when we're looking at what was driving the markets. Why were we up almost 600 points, 550 points? Well, when you look at American Express up over 7%, Goldman Sachs up over 7%, JP Morgan up to almost 6%, Citigroup up 8.5% yesterday. That gives you a little bit of an insight with Goldman back over pushing towards 210, got American Express somewhere near 101, and then JP Morgan, of course, back up on over 100 as well. So there is a lot to be said for what's going on in the markets right now and the strength of the markets that we're seeing. Now, participating as well, the industrials. And it's really interesting to see the specific names that are really participating best. But you look at Caterpillar and 3M, Raytheon, Boeing, all those kind of names, they're all up over 3% yesterday. So a really strong, powerful move out of areas not necessarily in the technology world, not in the chip space, not in the biotech space. We're talking about the big ones. And as a matter of fact, we had Tony Dwyer on earlier this week on Tuesday for a round table that we do these every Monday, although because of Memorial Day weekend, this was pushed to Tuesday. Tony Dwyer talked exactly on this topic. In his quote, great one, banks and tanks. That's what he's talking about. Banks and tanks. That's the rotation. Well, Tony right now, just a couple days in, has been dead on. As a matter of fact, up 1,000 points first two sessions of this week. That's pretty impressive. Obviously, a shorter week. Here we are at Thursday, but it really has been something interesting. And of course, you also, because of some of the excitement about opening and some of the excitement about as states are opening, things are starting to loosen up maybe a little bit. You see the cruise lines up. They had a pretty strong day yesterday as well as the airlines. So a lot of different movement yesterday, and it wasn't just the narrow group that was participating and moving things around. This was a big swath, a big, huge group. And the XLF itself, the financial ETF, that was up pretty strong as well. So when you look at all the various moves that we had yesterday and the support of volume, we talked about this the other day, but on Tuesday, we had really strong return of volume. We had about 29 million contracts trading on Tuesday. Well, yesterday we had 31.5 million. So we're really moving along. And sometimes you might almost want to call this FOMO, fear of missing out. Are people just sort of diving in? We talked about the $4.8 trillion sitting in money areas of the marketplace and $4.8 trillion in the money market funds. And is some of that going to try to go to work to try to get some kind of yield, to get some kind of return on investment? So that's something to keep in mind as well. And how long can this progress? Now, coming into today, the pre-market, we had a really strong, impressive move to the upside in the pre-market, and that sort of dissipated almost immediately. And a lot of that really sort of pushing down the financials, not really participating like they had been for the last couple of days. Not that they're getting hit necessarily too hard to the downside, but what is the leadership? Where's the leadership coming from? Well, it's healthcare today. Again, rotation. Now, this is a very rapid rotation, but if you look today, you see one name still on the tank side of things, and I'd put that as the Boeing, and that really having a pretty nice day and leading the Dow. But when you look over at healthcare and you look at United Health and you look at Pfizer and you look at Merck and all these various names, J&J, they're pretty powerful right now, and that's really been the strength. And we're still holding up, but we aren't anywhere near where we were on the highs. We had highs that were up. The Dow was pushing up towards 25,750. So those were pretty lofty levels to this morning already. That was pulled back, and here we are now. I'm looking right at it, 25,589. So you can do the math. A pretty decent pullback from where the highs were just on the early part of the day. We're an hour in right now as I'm doing the broadcast, so keep an eye on that as well. Things can change. We all see it all the time. Things can change very rapidly. Look at that last half hour yesterday, just an explosive move that we'd seen. So yesterday, part of yesterday, you had Micron. And Micron made an incredible move. That stock was trading around 44, got all the way up, pushing almost towards 50. And today, pulling back just a little bit, probably because just that huge move to the upside, but raising guidance, and everybody was very impressed about that. Some of the 5G exposure, I think, is another reason that Micron's a pretty interesting name. DraftKings is another name, and I'm pulling out specific names that are participating to the upside today just because it's interesting to see where some of that really is separating out. And DraftKings continues to make this move to the upside. Dollar Tree, off of those earnings that were absolutely spectacular, that stock just rocketing and spiking off of those earnings. Now, volatility. The volatility in the marketplace right now, we're still trading around 28. So despite the fact that we had that big move to the upside, we've come down and now we've somewhat flatlined, it seems like, for the last 45 minutes or so. We are seeing volatility still in the marketplace and holding on to that 28, actually a little bit higher than 28 right now. So there's a lot going on in the markets and a lot of rotation going on in the markets. And in my mind, that's a very healthy thing. Also, loved, as I pointed out, seeing some of the volume over the last couple of trading sessions, giving some support to what we're seeing in some of the moves that we've seen to the upside. Now, little unusual activity. We talk about Cisco all the time. This is a different Cisco. This is not the tech Cisco. This is SYY Cisco. So what are they doing? They're buying. Now we talk about short term all the time. This is absolutely short term. Today is Thursday, the 28th. These expire Friday, the 29th. So very, very short term, but it was one of the more interesting unusuals. We're a little bit thin today. So the volume's not looking anything close, at least early on, to what we had been seeing over the previous couple of sessions. So this one did sort of stick out to me though, because it had just hit right before I started out here. 5,700 of this Friday, tomorrow, expiring 56.5 calls, trading for about 70 cents. So this is just somebody taking an absolute flyer saying, you know what, at 55.75, we think this has got a shot to start moving to the upside and make a pretty powerful move because it's going to take a pretty strong move in a very rapid 2 days, and then these expire. So this move does have to happen fast. We talk about the short term, and we see this short term all the time. And that really has been the dominant side of what we've seen in unusual option activity. There are some that go out. We've even seen going out to January 2021 to January 2022. But majority of everything we are seeing is extreme short term, 1 week, 2 week, 3 week type expiration terms. Today, what I just gave you, that's a 2-dayer. So now, I talked about episode number 100, so we decided we're going to do a little something about this. So if you go to marketrebellion.com/the take, and you go there, subscribe for the take, and you immediately will be entered into this. It's a giveaway. There's going to be 3 of them. So you got Market Rebellion starter packs. Now, what do you get there? You get some t-shirts, you get some swag, you get some hats, you get also the book, Follow the Smart Money. So that's going to be great. You get 1 year of TNT. You're going to love that. That's phenomenal. And unlimited access to our biggest options course. So we talk about this all the time here on The Take. You got to be educated. You have to understand the whole process and the pricing to make sure that you are at least putting yourself into position with the knowledge and understanding the risks. We talk about that all the time. Well, that comes with education. That's what we pride ourselves on. So in this package, we're talking about unlimited access to our beginners options course. That's big. That's a great opportunity to understand this world, the derivatives world. And you hear those numbers that I talk about all the time. I purposely always try to point out these volumes because even as I mentioned the other day, on the slower sections of this year, we are at a record pace. And the last 2 days, we definitely spiked right back up. Probably call that an average of a little over about 30 million per day over the last 2 days. That's a monster numbers, guys. That's why we love what we do, because we are in the spot, in the markets, in the growth area of the markets. And it's this educational package that you've got here and what the giveaway is here, that's pretty phenomenal. So this is the 100th episode. Again, I'm going to tell you, marketrebellion.com/the take, and that immediately enters you. Folks, have a great day of trading. Oh, and I'll see you on the halftime report as well as the 5 o'clock. Got a double-double today for you guys. Have a great one.